Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. Now, back to Alina Brooks. He thought it was just a wrong number. A single message glowing on a phone screen in the middle of a Mafia meeting. But Dante Moretti was about to learn that sometimes judgment does not arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives as a text from a woman too terrified to call for help. Across the city, rain scratched against the windows of a small apartment above a closed laundromat. The hallway light outside flickered weakly, spilling a pale yellow line beneath the door. Inside, Alina Brooks lay on the kitchen floor, one hand pressed against the cold tile, the other clutching a cracked phone like it was the last piece of the world that still belonged to her. Her breathing came in short, shaking pulse. She was still wearing the black uniform from the Moretti mansion, white collar, dark sleeves, polished shoes now wet from the rain. Hours earlier, she had been invisible in rooms full of marble and gold, carrying silver trays, wiping crystal glasses, lowering her eyes whenever rich people spoke as if she were furniture. Now, in her own apartment, she felt even smaller. The man in the next room was still pacing. His shadow moved across the wall every few seconds. Alina did not look toward him. She had learned not to. Looking made things worse. Speaking made things worse. Crying made things worse. So she did the only thing she could do. She unlocked her phone with trembling fingers and opened the last conversation she thought belonged to her younger sister. Her vision blurred. Her thumb slipped once. Twice. Then she typed 5 words. He broke my leg. She stared at the message, shame burning hotter than pain. Then she added, I don't know what to do, and pressed send. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the message bubble turned blue. Delivered. Alina's stomach dropped. That was when she saw the name at the top of the screen. Not her sister. Not anyone safe. Dante Moretti. Her employer. The man people in Chicago spoke about only in low voices. The man whose mansion had gates taller than churches. The man whose bodyguards never smiled. The man who could silence a room by entering it. Alina's blood went cold. No, she whispered. She tried to delete it. Too late. Across the city, Dante Moretti sat at the head of a long black table, surrounded by men in tailored suits and colder intentions. Smoke curled above crystal ashtrays. Rain slid down the dark windows behind him. A map of the city lay open beneath his hand. One of his capos was speaking. By morning, the docks will be ours. Dante was not listening anymore. His phone had lit up beside his untouched glass of whiskey. He glanced at it once. Then again. The room continued murmuring until Dante slowly raised one hand. Every voice died. His dark eyes remained on the screen. He broke my leg. I don't know what to do. No name. No explanation. No demand. Just fear. Dante's jaw tightened. He had received threats before. Please. Warnings. Lies dressed as emergencies. But this was different. There was no performance in those words. No strategy. No manipulation. Only a woman apologizing to the world for needing help. Dante picked up the phone. His men watched him carefully. No one dared ask who had written to him. He typed one question. Who is he? Back in the apartment, Alina saw the reply and froze. The pacing in the next room stopped. Her hand shook so badly the phone nearly slipped from her fingers. She typed quickly, panic rising in her throat. I'm sorry, sir. Wrong number. Please forget this. Dante read the message. For the first time that night, something in his expression changed. Not anger. Recognition. He knew that kind of apology. It was the language of people who had been trained to believe their suffering was an inconvenience. The men around the table waited for orders about territory, money, revenge. But Dante Moretti stood. His chair scraped softly against the marble floor. Then he typed back. Pain is not an inconvenience. Send me your location. Alina stared at the words until they blurred. In the next room, the shadow moved again. And for the first time all night, she understood something terrifying. The wrong number had answered back. 6 months earlier, Alina Brooks had stood outside the Moretti mansion with a paper folder pressed against her chest and rainwater soaking through the soles of her shoes. The mansion rose above Lakeshore Drive like something built to remind the city who owned the night. Black iron gates. White stone pillars. Windows tall enough to reflect the clouds. Every surface looked polished, expensive, untouchable. Alina almost turned back. Then she thought of her mother's medicine on the kitchen counter back home. Her younger sister's tuition bill. The overdue rent folded inside her purse like a quiet threat. So she rang the bell. Mrs. Bellamy, the head housekeeper, opened the door and looked her over with the sharp eyes of a woman who had spent 30 years deciding who could survive in rich people's houses. You understand discretion? Mrs. Bellamy asked. Yes, ma'am. You understand Mr. Moretti does not like noise, questions, or staff who forget their place. Alina swallowed. Yes, ma'am. That was how her life inside the mansion began. She learned quickly. Never step into the West Wing after sunset. Never touch the locked cabinet in Dante's study. Never look too long at the men who arrived in black cars with no license plates. Never react when voices dropped behind closed doors. Most of all, never make herself noticeable. So Alina became excellent at disappearing. She moved through rooms like a shadow with a dust cloth. She polished silver until it reflected chandeliers. She folded linen napkins into perfect triangles. She carried coffee to men who could order destruction with a nod, and she kept her eyes on the tray. But Dante noticed things. That was what frightened her most. He noticed when a vase had been moved half an inch. He noticed when a guard lied. He noticed when someone laughed too loudly. And one afternoon, as Alina crossed the marble hallway carrying fresh towels, he noticed her limp. His voice stopped her before she reached the stairs. Your foot. Alina froze. The towels shifted in her arms. It's nothing, sir. Dante stood near the study doors in a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable. Behind him, 2 bodyguards waited with their hands folded in front of them. You're limping. I slipped on the bus. Step. The lie came too quickly. Dante's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in calculation. Alina lowered her gaze. For a moment, the house went quiet around them. Even the old grandfather clock seemed to hold its breath. Then Dante said, Be careful. Yes, sir. She walked away slowly, forcing each step to look normal until she turned the corner. Only then did she grip the wall. At home, Marcus was waiting. To the outside world, Marcus Reed was charming. He smiled at neighbors, held doors for old ladies, called Alina my girl, in a voice sweet enough to fool strangers. But behind closed doors, sweetness became ownership. He checked her phone, counted her tips, asked why she took 5 minutes longer to get home, asked who Dante Moretti was with a smile that never reached his eyes. You think you're better than me now? He would say, leaning in close. Working in that mansion? Around those rich men? Alina learned to answer softly. No, Marcus. Soft answers kept the storm smaller. Not gone, just smaller. At the mansion, she hid everything beneath discipline. Long sleeves, careful makeup, a smile that appeared only when required. When the other maids joked in the laundry room, Alina laughed half a second too late. When Mrs. Bellamy asked if she was eating enough, Alina said yes. She was good at saying yes. Yes, I'm fine. Yes, I can stay late. Yes, it was an accident. Yes, I understand. But Dante Moretti had built an empire by hearing what people did not say. One evening, he watched from the balcony above the foyer as Alina helped a new kitchen girl clean up a shattered tray. The girl was crying, terrified she would be fired. Alina knelt beside her, gathering broken porcelain piece by piece. Breathe, she whispered. People matter more than plates. Dante heard it. He said nothing, but his hand tightened around the railing. Because in his world, people were often treated as cheaper than plates. And Alina Brooks, the woman everyone overlooked, had just revealed a kind of courage money could not buy. That was the first time Dante Moretti wondered who had taught her to be so gentle with everyone except herself. The night Alina sent the message began with silence. Not peaceful silence. The kind that sat in the room before a storm decided whether to break. She had come home late from the Moretti mansion with her shoulders aching and her fingers smelling faintly of lemon polish. In her coat pocket was an envelope of cash. Not much, just what she had saved from extra shifts, folded carefully and hidden behind a receipt. It was supposed to go to her mother. A small payment for medicine. A little help for groceries. A quiet promise that Alina was still holding the family together, even if no one knew how badly she was falling apart. Marcus found it before she could hide it. He stood by the kitchen table, the envelope open in his hand, his smile thin and dangerous. What's this? Alina stopped near the door. The apartment suddenly felt too small. The ceiling too low. The air too heavy. It's for my mother, she said softly. Marcus looked down at the money, then back at her. For your mother, he repeated, as if the words offended him. So you're sneaking money out now? It's mine. I worked for it. The moment she said it, she wished she could pull the sentence back. Marcus's eyes changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. The sweetness disappeared. From the street below, a car passed through puddles, its tires whispering against wet pavement. Somewhere upstairs, a baby cried and was quickly hushed. The world kept moving, ordinary and unaware. Inside the apartment, Alina stood very still. Marcus stepped closer. You work in that mansion and forget who you come home to? No, she whispered. You think because Moretti pays you, he owns you now? Alina shook her head. But Marcus was no longer listening. He talked in circles, each word tightening around her. Accusations, jealousy, control dressed up as love. He spoke as if her fear proved his pain, as if her silence made him the victim. Then the argument became movement. A chair scraped backward. A glass fell and shattered. Alina tried to get to the door, but the apartment tilted into panic. She remembered the edge of the table, the cold bite of tile beneath her palms, the sharp, white flash of pain that stole the air from her lungs. After that, there were only pieces. Marcus, pacing, her phone under the table, the envelope of money scattered across the floor like something worthless. Alina did not scream. She had learned that screaming did not always bring help. Sometimes it only brought neighbors who turned up the television. So she pulled herself across the kitchen floor 1 inch at a time, biting back every sound. Her hand stretched beneath the table until her fingers brushed the cracked edge of her phone. The screen lit up. Her younger sister's name was somewhere in the messages. Alina knew it was. She just had to find it. Her thumb trembled. Her vision blurred. Tears slipped down her temples into her hairline. The footsteps stopped in the next room. Alina held her breath. Marcus muttered something to himself, then continued pacing. She opened a conversation, typed with one hand. He broke my leg. She stopped, staring at the words. They looked impossible, too real, too shameful, as if writing them made them true in a way pain alone had not. Then she added, I don't know what to do. Her thumb hovered over send. For 1 second, pride tried to save her from humiliation. For 1 second, fear tried to convince her that no one would come. Then Marcus's shadow crossed the kitchen wall again. Alina pressed send. The message delivered. Relief lasted only a heartbeat. Then she saw the name. Dante Moretti. The room seemed to fall away beneath her. No, 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 she whispered, trying to sit up and failing. She had not texted her sister. She had texted the most dangerous man in Chicago. At the Moretti mansion, Dante sat beneath a chandelier that threw cold light across the faces of killers and businessmen pretending there was a difference. One of his men was explaining a betrayal at the docks, but Dante's attention shifted the moment his phone glowed. He read the message once. Then again. The men at the table kept talking until he lifted one finger. Silence dropped instantly. Dante stared at the screen, his face unreadable. Then he typed, Who is he? Alina saw the reply and went still. The wrong number had answered. And somehow, that frightened her almost as much as the man in the next room. Alina stared at Dante Moretti's reply until the letters seemed to burn through the glass. Who is he? 2 words. No greeting. No confusion. No question about why she had disturbed him. Just the thing everyone else had always avoided asking. Who hurt you? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, shaking so hard she pressed the wrong letters twice. In the next room, Marcus was still pacing, his voice low now, muttering to himself like a man building excuses before morning arrived. Alina deleted the half-typed answer. She could not drag Dante Moretti into this. Men like him did not rescue women like her. Men like him solved problems in ways that left permanent shadows. And she had spent her entire life trying not to become anyone's problem. So she typed the only thing fear had taught her to say. I'm sorry, sir. Wrong number. Please forget this. She sent it. Then she pressed the phone against her chest and closed her eyes. At the Moretti mansion, Dante read the message without moving. Around him, the meeting remained frozen. 12 men sat in silence, their eyes lowered, waiting for the command that would decide who controlled the docks by sunrise. A city map lay open on the table, marked with red circles and black ink. A glass of whiskey caught the chandelier light beside Dante's hand. But he was no longer in that room. He was somewhere else. Years earlier, a narrow apartment in Naples. His mother standing near a sink, whispering, I'm fine, with a smile too practiced to be real. His father's voice behind a closed door. The same apology, the same shame, the same terrible instinct to protect the person who had caused the fear. Dante's jaw hardened. He knew the grammar of survival. He knew what it meant when someone apologized for bleeding. One of his capos cleared his throat carefully. "Boss." Dante lifted his eyes. The man immediately looked down. Dante typed again. "Pain is not an inconvenience. Send me your location." He waited. Across the city, Alina's phone buzzed in her hands. She opened the message. For a moment, she could not breathe. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Pain is not an inconvenience. Not her mother, who loved her but needed her strong. Not her sister, who still believed Alina was. Only tired. Not the neighbors who heard too much and asked too little. Not the women at church who told her to pray harder. Not even herself. She had treated her own suffering like an unpaid bill. Something embarrassing. Something to hide. Her eyes filled again. Marcus's footsteps stopped. "Who are you texting?" he called. Alina's whole body went cold. "Nobody," she answered, her voice thin. The floor creaked. He was coming closer. Her thumb moved before courage could abandon her. She tapped the location pin. Sent. Then she shoved the phone beneath the edge of the cabinet just as Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway. His face was flushed, his hair disordered, his expression already rearranging itself into wounded innocence. "Alina," he said softly, "why do you always make me the bad guy?" She said nothing. He crouched a few feet away, not close enough to comfort her, only close enough to remind her that the room still belonged to him. "You know I love you." The words fell like dust. Alina looked at the broken glass near the table, the scattered money, the door that suddenly seemed miles away. Her phone, hidden beneath the cabinet, buzzed once. Marcus heard it. His eyes narrowed. What was that? At the mansion, Dante was already moving. He slipped the phone into his coat pocket and walked toward the door. The men at the table rose with him, confused but obedient. "Meeting's over," Dante said. "But the docs," Dante stopped. The room went colder. "A woman asked for help," he said quietly. "The docs can wait." No one spoke after that. Outside, rain struck the black cars lined beneath the mansion lights. Dante stepped into the first vehicle, followed by two of his most trusted men. He looked at the glowing location on his phone. A poor apartment above a laundromat. 23 minutes away. Dante's eyes darkened. Drive. The car pulled into the night. And somewhere across the city, Alina Brooks lay on a kitchen floor, not knowing that the wrong number had just become the most dangerous answer Marcus Reed would ever receive. The black car stopped beneath the broken streetlight outside the laundromat. Rain slid over the windshield in silver lines. The neighborhood was quiet in the way poor neighborhoods became quiet when people had learned not to hear trouble through walls. Dante Moretti stepped out first. No shouting. No dramatic orders. No storm of men rushing the building. Just Dante in a black coat, his face carved from calm anger, with two men behind him who knew better than to speak unless spoken to. He looked up at the apartment window above the laundromat. One light was on, a weak yellow square against the dark. "Stay behind me," Dante said. His men nodded. Inside the apartment, Marcus Reed had found the phone. He crouched beside the cabinet, holding it between two fingers as if it had betrayed him personally. The screen glowed with one message from Dante. "I'm outside." Marcus's expression changed. For the first time that night, fear entered the room. He looked at Alina. "Who did you call?" Alina's mouth went dry. "I didn't call anyone." Marcus stood slowly. "Don't lie to me." Then came the knock. 3 quiet hits against the door. Not loud, not rushed, but somehow worse than shouting. Marcus stared at the door as if it had become something alive. Alina lay against the cabinet, every breath caught painfully in her chest, unable to understand how a message sent by mistake had reached her doorstep. The knock came again. Marcus wiped his face with one hand, trying to rebuild himself into the charming man neighbors recognized. Then he opened the door. Dante Moretti stood in the hallway. For 1 second, no one spoke. The hallway bulb flickered above him, casting sharp shadows along his cheekbones. His black coat was damp from rain. His eyes moved past Marcus, into the apartment, taking in everything in silence. The overturned chair, the broken glass, the scattered bills, the woman on the kitchen floor. Marcus forced a laugh. "Mr. Moretti, this is unexpected." Dante did not smile. "Move." Marcus's face twitched. "I'm sorry." "Move away from the door." This is a private matter. Dante stepped closer. The air seemed to leave the hallway. No, he said quietly. Private is what two people choose. Fear is what one person hides. Marcus swallowed. Behind Dante, one of his men shifted slightly, not threatening, just present. That was enough. Marcus stepped aside. Dante entered the apartment. Alina turned her face away the moment he saw her. Shame rose before relief could. She wanted to disappear into the cracked tile, into the dark corner, anywhere his eyes could not find her like this. Sir, she whispered. I'm sorry. Dante stopped. That word again. Sorry. As if she had interrupted dinner. As if she had stained a carpet. As if being hurt were bad manners. He crossed the kitchen slowly and lowered himself to one knee beside her. Not above her. Beside her. Alina's breath shook. I didn't mean to involve you, she said. Dante removed his coat and placed it carefully around her shoulders. The wool was warm, heavy, smelling faintly of rain and cedar. You didn't involve me, he said. He did. Marcus scoffed from near the door, but the sound came out weak. She's emotional. She exaggerates. You don't know how she gets. Dante did not look at him. His gaze stayed on Alina. What's your name? He asked softly, though he already knew. Alina Brooks. Alina, he said, as if giving the name back to her with dignity attached. My doctor is coming. My lawyer is coming. And you are not staying here tonight. Her eyes widened. I can't just leave. Yes, Dante said. You can. Marcus took one step forward. She belongs here. That was when Dante stood. Slowly, the room changed with him. The rain tapped against the window. Somewhere below, a neon sign buzzed. Alina could hear her own heartbeat. Dante turned toward Marcus at last. She belongs, he said, each word quiet and clean. To herself. Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Dante looked to one of his men. Call Mrs. Bellamy. Prepare the East guest room. No staff questions. No gossip. Then he looked back at Marcus. And you, he said, voice lower now, will answer for every moment that made her afraid to ask for help. The apartment went silent. For the first time since Alina had hit the floor, Marcus Reed had nothing to say. The first thing Alina noticed inside Dante Moretti's car was the silence. Not the heavy silence of Marcus's apartment, where every quiet moment felt like a warning. This silence was different. Controlled. Protected. Rain blurred the windows as the black car moved through the city. Streetlights stretched into golden lines across the glass. Alina sat in the back seat with Dante's coat wrapped around her shoulders, her hands folded tightly in her lap, trying not to shake. Beside her, Dante said nothing. That somehow made her more nervous. Men had always used words to trap her. Sweet words. Angry words. Apologies that demanded forgiveness before morning. Promises that sounded like chains polished until they shined. But Dante's silence asked for nothing. It only made space. A doctor was waiting when they arrived at the Moretti mansion. The East guest room had been prepared exactly as Dante ordered. Fresh sheets. Warm lamps. A silver tray with tea cooling beside the bed. Mrs. Bellamy stood near the doorway in her robe, face pale with worry, but she did not ask questions. One look from Dante had been enough. Alina tried to stand on her own when the car door opened. Pain shot through her, and she gripped the seat. I can walk, she whispered. Dante looked at her. No one asked you to prove that. The words were quiet. They broke something inside her anyway. One of Dante's men brought a wheelchair from the house. Alina's cheeks burned as they helped her into it. She could feel the eyes of the guards, the staff, the whole mansion waking around her. She hated being seen like this. Weak. Messy. Needing. I'm sorry, she said again, voice barely there. Mrs. Bellamy stepped forward, but Dante raised one hand gently, stopping her. He crouched in front of Alina, just as he had in the apartment, lowering himself until she could not hide behind shame. Look at me. She did. His eyes were dark, steady, impossible to read. You will not apologize for surviving in my house. Alina's lips parted, but no answer came. Dante continued, softer now. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever. The hallway went still. Even Mrs. Bellamy looked down, blinking fast. The doctor examined Alina in the guest room while Dante waited outside the door with his hands in his pockets. The mansion around him seemed different now. The marble floors, the gold-framed paintings, the high ceilings, all. The things that once made his power visible suddenly felt useless compared to one woman's fear. His men waited nearby. Finally, Nico, his oldest guard, spoke carefully. What do you want done with Marcus Reed? Dante's jaw tightened. For a moment, the old answer rose in him. The easy answer. The answer his world understood. But then he looked at the closed guest room door. Alina had already lived under fear. She did not need more fear wearing his name. Nothing reckless, Dante said. Nico's brows lifted slightly. Dante turned to him. We do this clean. Lawyer. Police report. Restraining order. Every witness. Every record. Every dollar he took from her. I want it documented. Nico nodded. And if he runs? Dante's voice lowered. Then he learns the city is smaller than his cowardice. Inside the room, Alina heard none of that. She sat on the edge of the bed after the doctor left, staring at her hands. Mrs. Bellamy placed a cup of tea near her. You're safe here, the older woman said. Alina almost laughed. Safe. The word felt too large to trust. I don't want trouble, Alina whispered. Mrs. Bellamy's face softened. Child, trouble already found you. Let help find you too. The door opened gently. Dante stepped in but stayed near the threshold, as if asking permission without saying the word. Alina looked up. I can leave tomorrow, she said quickly. I won't bring this into your home. Dante's expression did not change, but something in the room cooled. My home, he said, has survived gunfire, betrayal, and men with no souls. He took one slow step forward. It can survive a woman needing rest. Alina's eyes filled. She looked away, ashamed of the tears. Dante did not move closer. He only said, Sleep, Alina. No one gets through that door without my permission. For the first time in years, she believed a door could protect her, not trap her. And as the rain softened against the windows, Alina Brooks closed her eyes inside the house of the most feared man in Chicago, and finally stopped apologizing for breathing. By morning, the Moretti mansion had changed. Not on the outside. The gates still stood like iron judgment. The black cars still waited in the circular drive. The guards still watched the property with silent eyes. But inside, something had shifted. Whispers moved through the staff corridors like smoke. Alina Brooks was in the east guest room. Mr. Moretti had brought her himself. No one was to ask questions. No one was to gossip. No one was to make her feel ashamed. Mrs. Bellamy delivered those instructions before breakfast, standing in the kitchen with her robe tied tight and her silver hair pinned back. Her voice was calm, but every maid, cook, and driver understood the warning beneath it. This house will be kind today, she said, and anyone who cannot manage kindness will leave before lunch. No one laughed. Upstairs, Alina woke to sunlight touching the edge of the curtains. For one strange second, she did not know where she was. The bed was too soft. The room too warm. The air smelled of clean linen and lavender instead of dust, fear, and old rain. Then memory returned. The text. The apartment. Dante kneeling beside her. His voice saying, You will not apologize for surviving in my house. Her chest tightened. She turned her face toward the pillow and cried quietly, not because she was afraid, but because safety felt unfamiliar enough to hurt. Downstairs, Dante Moretti stood in his study while 3 men waited before him. Nico had already placed a folder on the desk. Inside were photographs of the apartment, phone records, hospital notes, bank withdrawals, neighbors' statements gathered before dawn by people who knew how to make silence speak. Dante opened the folder without sitting. Marcus Reed, he asked. Picked up 2 hours ago, Nico replied. He tried to claim Miss Brooks fell. Dante's eyes lifted. Nico continued. Then he tried to say she was unstable. Then he tried to say she stole from him. A long silence followed. The kind of silence men feared more than shouting. Dante closed the folder. He will not touch her name again. Nico nodded. The lawyer is ready. Police report filed. Emergency protection order requested. We also found 3 accounts where her pay was being transferred after she cashed checks. He took more than we thought. Dante's hand tightened on the folder. For a moment, the old violence in him rose like a dark tide. Easy. Familiar. Waiting. But then he remembered Alina's face when she apologized from the floor. He remembered how small her voice had become from surviving men who mistook control for love. No, this would not be another man deciding her fate in a locked room. This would be public, documented, clean, permanent. Return every dollar, Dante said. From my account first. Then recover it from him legally. Nico's eyebrow moved slightly. Dante looked at him. She does not wait for justice because paperwork is slow. Yes, boss. At that moment, the study doors opened. Mrs. Bellamy entered without fear, something only a woman who had survived 30 years in that house could do. "She's awake," she said. Dante's expression changed almost imperceptibly. "Does she need anything?" She asked for her uniform. The room went still. Dante turned fully. "Why?" Mrs. Bellamy's mouth tightened. "She said she doesn't want anyone thinking she came here to be treated special." Dante looked toward the ceiling, toward the room where Alina was trying to fold herself back into invisibility even with a broken body. "She is not working today. I told her. And she said she needs the money." Dante's eyes darkened. A minute later, he was outside the east guest room. He knocked once. "Come in," Alina said softly. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, already trying to button the sleeve of her black, Maid uniform over trembling fingers. The sight stopped him in the doorway. "Alina." She looked up quickly. "Sir, I'm sorry. I just thought if I could help with small things." No, the word was not loud, but it ended the sentence. Alina's hands froze. Dante stepped inside, holding the folder at his side. "You will be paid for every day you recover. Your position remains yours. Your room remains yours until you decide where you want to go." Her eyes filled with confusion. "I don't understand." "That is because no one has treated your life like it has value unless you were working." The words landed softly, cruelly, truthfully. Alina looked down at the uniform in her lap. Dante placed the folder on the small table near her bed. "Marcus Reed is being handled by the law. Your money is being returned. Your medical care is covered. And no one in this house will speak your story unless you choose to tell it." Alina stared at him. "Why are you doing all this?" Dante was quiet for a moment. Outside the window, morning lights spread across the lawn, turning the wet grass silver. "Because last night," he said, "you sent a message to the wrong number." He paused, and the right person finally read it. Alina's lips trembled. For the first time, she did not say sorry. She only lowered her head as tears slipped quietly down her face. Dante turned toward the door, giving her the dignity of privacy. Before he left, he said one final thing. "Rest, Alina. Justice does not need you standing to arrive." And behind him, the mansion fell silent. 3 weeks later, Alina Brooks returned to the main floor of the Moretti mansion. Not as a guest, not exactly as a maid either. Something had changed, though no one knew what to call it. She moved slowly with a brace beneath her skirt and one hand resting lightly on the banister. The doctor had warned her not to push herself, and Mrs. Bellamy had repeated that warning every morning with the force of scripture. But Alina needed to walk. Not because anyone demanded it. Because, for the first time in years, her steps belonged to her. The mansion was bright that afternoon. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, turning the marble floors pale gold. Somewhere in the kitchen, copper pans clinked softly. A gardener trimmed roses outside the glass doors. The world looked ordinary. But the people inside the house were not. They watched her differently now. Before, Alina had been the woman they passed without seeing. The one carrying towels. The one refilling coffee. The one who cleaned rooms after powerful people left them full of cigar smoke and secrets. Now, conversations softened when she entered. Not with pity, with respect. A young maid named Elise hurried forward when Alina reached for a folded tablecloth. "Let me get that," Elise said. Alina smiled gently. "I can carry linen." "I know," Elise said. "But you don't have to carry everything." The words struck deeper than they should. "Have." Alina looked down. For a moment, she saw herself weeks earlier, crawling across cold tile toward a phone, believing help was something other people deserved. Then she looked back at Elise. "Thank you," she said. No apology followed. Across the foyer, Dante Moretti stood near the study doors, watching without pretending he wasn't. He had not crowded her during recovery. He did not ask for gratitude. He did not make speeches about saving her. Each morning, he simply made sure the doctor came, the lawyer called, and Marcus Reed's name stayed far away from her door. That was Dante's kind of care. Quiet, precise, terrifying to anyone who threatened it. Mrs. Bellamy joined him near the study. "She's stronger today," the older woman said. Dante's eyes remained on Alina as she helped Elise fold the cloth. She was strong before. Mrs. Bellamy glanced at him. "Then why does she look different?" Dante was silent for a long moment. "Because now she knows it." In the dining room, one of Dante's capos entered with 2 men Alina had never seen before. They spoke loudly, laughing about business, about money, about people as if people were numbers. One of them stopped when he saw Alina. His eyes dropped to the brace near her leg, then moved over her uniform. A smirk touched his mouth. So this is the maid everyone's whispering about. The room cooled. Elise froze beside Alina. Mrs. Bellamy turned slowly. But Dante did not move. Not yet. The man, foolish enough to mistake silence for permission, gave a small laugh. Must be special treatment these days. Alina's fingers tightened around the linen. For half a second, the old instinct returned. Lower your eyes. Stay quiet. Become small. Then she heard Dante's voice from the doorway. Repeat that. 2 words. The man's smile died. Dante stepped into the dining room. Not quickly, not loudly, but with the calm of a storm that already knew where it would strike. The capo beside the man went pale. Boss, he didn't mean. I asked him to repeat it. No one breathed. The man looked at Alina again, but this time he saw what he had missed. She was not standing alone. And more importantly, she was no longer looking down. Alina lifted her chin. Her voice was quiet, but steady. I heard him the first time, Mr. Moretti. Dante looked at her. Something like approval passed through his eyes. Then Alina turned to the man. I am not special because I was hurt, she said. I am respected because I am human. The room went silent. Dante did not need to add anything. He only looked at the man until shame did what fear could not. The man lowered his head. My apologies, Miss Brooks. Alina nodded once. Not grateful. Not humbled. Simply accepting what should have been given from the beginning. That afternoon, the mansion learned a new rule. Alina Brooks was no longer invisible. And dignity, once restored, had a way of changing every room it entered. That evening, Alina found Dante Moretti alone in the garden. The mansion behind him glowed with warm light, every window bright against the deep blue of dusk. Rain from earlier still clung to the roses, shining like tiny pieces of glass. Somewhere beyond the gates, Chicago moved with sirens, traffic, and secrets. But inside the Moretti garden, everything was still. Dante stood near the stone fountain, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a folded document. He did not turn when Alina approached, but she knew he heard her. Men like Dante heard everything. Mr. Moretti, she said softly. He looked over his shoulder. You should be resting. I've been resting for 3 weeks. Not long enough. A faint smile touched her face, then disappeared beneath the weight of what she had come to say. Dante noticed. He always noticed. What is it? Alina stepped closer, careful on the gravel path. Her hands were folded in front of her, fingers pressing together the way they did when she was trying not to tremble. I need to thank you, she said. Dante's expression remained unreadable. You already did. No, Alina whispered. Not properly. The fountain water moved softly between them. She looked toward the mansion, the place that had once made her feel invisible, and then somehow became the first place where she had been allowed to heal. You gave me a room, a doctor, a lawyer. You got my money back. You made sure Marcus couldn't come near me. Dante's jaw tightened slightly at the name, but he said nothing. Alina continued. You gave me more than I knew how to ask for. You asked for help. I sent a message to the wrong number. No, Dante said. You sent the truth. The number was the only mistake. Alina's eyes filled, but she held the tears back. For the first time, she did not want to cry because she was broken. She wanted to cry because someone had believed her before she had to prove her pain. She reached into the pocket of her sweater and pulled out a small envelope. Dante looked at it. What's that? My resignation. The garden seemed to go quieter. Dante did not take it. Alina swallowed. I can't stay here forever. People are already talking, and I don't want to be the woman everyone treats carefully because they feel sorry for her. Dante's eyes sharpened. Is that what you think this is? I don't know what else to call it. He turned fully toward her then, the last light of evening catching the hard lines of his face. Respect, he said. Alina went still. Dante stepped closer, but not too close. You think they respect you because I told them to? She lowered her gaze. I think they're afraid of you. They are, he said calmly. But fear fades when my back is turned. What happened today in that dining room did not come from me. Alina looked up. Dante's voice softened. You stood there with a brace on your leg, in a room full of men who thought power made them taller, and you reminded them you were human. Her lips parted slightly. You did that, Alina. The envelope trembled in her hand. I was scared. Courage usually is. The words landed with such quiet force that she could not move. Dante looked down at the resignation letter, then back at her. You may leave this house whenever you choose. Not because shame pushes you out. Not because whispers make you run. Only because your own feet decide where they want to go. Alina's breath caught. No one had ever spoken of her life like it belonged to her. Not as a duty. Not as a burden. Not as something to survive for everyone else. Hers. Dante reached out, not touching her, only placing his hand beneath the envelope. If this is freedom, I'll accept it, he said. If it is fear, I won't help fear steal another room from you. Alina stared at him. The words froze her. Because for years, she had mistaken escape for freedom. She had run from anger, from shame, from questions, from kindness that felt too expensive to trust. But Dante Moretti, the most feared man in Chicago, had just offered her something more frightening than protection. A choice. Slowly, Alina lowered the envelope. I don't want to leave tonight, she whispered. Dante nodded once. Then don't. No victory speech followed. No dramatic promise. Just the fountain, the roses, and the silence of a woman finally allowed to decide. Alina turned toward the mansion. This time, she did not see a cage of marble and rules. She saw a door, and she walked toward it without lowering her head. Behind her, Dante remained in the garden, watching the woman he had once known only as a maid become something far greater. Not rescued, not owned, not pitted, free. And that day, the world remembered what dignity looks like.